How should we step up the pace?
I think our one way of moving faster is education, but also the public media that has been around to promote Indigenous people living with HIV. This is the first time in my history of living with HIV for say 24 years that I've been given a platform to be able to have my voice be heard.
Moving faster from our perspective means drawing on the whole range of tools that we now have to move towards the end of this epidemic. So it's not about using one or the other, but about making sure we try to use them all in an integrated way to move forward.
A good idea now to use the social media to connect by internet, no? To create some ideas, campaigns against violence, against discrimination, but move, and especially with young people, by social media.
Well, we do really have two big goals. The 2030 is the big end goal to end AIDS. 2020 is a breakdown before that. We've got the end of the MDGs at the end of 2014. And then trying to get HIV/AIDS back onto the Sustainable Development Goals, I think is going to be very important for political leadership, for the international community, and for the United Nations as a whole.
I think this is where you talk about the political commitment, where the leaders of the government of each country should, sometimes as much as the community or the people is trying to push at the country level, sometimes it again depends on the leaders of the country. Without them, we can't move it because we need funding locally. Because a lot of donors are moving out of middle income countries or kind of thing. So it's very difficult. What I believe is that, we work together. And a lot of time there's still, when you look at certain countries, it's very difficult to move, not moving forward, but moving backwards. So I think it's time that, the government look at this as a priority issues. Because if not, people are dying every day. We can't keep on talking and talking. We need action.
Well, I think there's a number of things. I think part of it is about setting targets and goals. And there's a legacy statement in Australia which has been signed up by all health ministers, and that's one aspect at a local level. But more broadly, nationally and internationally, I think part of this is about a commitment to looking to the future, to putting the resources in, to actually having a very clear focus. And perhaps the terrible happenings at the start will galvanise people into an outcome for the future.
Women's rights are human rights too. Girls' rights are human rights too. So we got to start looking at the vulnerabilities of how this virus, interferes with whoever, and take the money to our communities, because the money doesn't reach our communities, and that is where the problem is. We are struggling, we are shutting down. And how are we going to end the AIDS if we are not going to put the resources? Even Bill Clinton said yesterday, the resources are with the non-doers. The doers don't have the resources. We're shutting down. There's no money. You do these things from your heart. Until and unless we give, then we can talk about what you're saying.
I can't comment on a global view, but I can comment what's happening in Victoria. And I believe is to have those open conversations in communities, to have those culturally appropriate conversations where you can talk about HIV, to be even more bolder, to talk about sex and other blood-borne viruses like hepatitis C. So that's just as important. So I think what we need to do is have a lot more access to preventative resources so we can have those preventative conversations. That's, I believe, we need to, as a community, as an Aboriginal community, we need to talk more about it. And to do that in a safe environment, we actually need to look at preventative measures.
This means stepping up the money that we put on to all aspects of the disease: care, treatment, prevention, education.
New Zealand's got one of the best records in the world of HIV management, particularly among the key affected group in New Zealand, which is MSM. We've stood really staunchly by the condom promotion message as kind of the best primary prevention, scalable possibility for ending the epidemic. but also carefully trying to integrate the new tools that we're seeing emerge. So the use of increased testing, the use of increased treatment, and the possible secondary impact that those things can have on HIV incidence.
Well, in Australia we need to look at changes to the Therapeutic Goods Administration. We need to get drugs out faster. We need to get access to pre-exposure prophylaxis. The state government in Victoria needs to make sure that everybody has easy access to PEP. We need to keep working on our health promotion campaigns, and so there's a lot of changes that we have to make here. Access to home testing, we've got to get some home testing out there, and we've got to get rapid testing right across the country as well.
We have to fight for the rights of everyone.
Today I launched a musical offering by a fine Chinese-Australian musician, Lyle Chan. It was launched at the National Gallery of Victoria, and his AIDS memorial is a story of his life in music, and it tells of the early frantic days when he took part as an activist in ACT UP, when he took part in illegal importation of drugs into Australia, the desperation of that time. There needs to be a continuance of that sense of urgency and the involvement of the civil society. This is a time to stir things up. When wrongs and great wrongs are happening and will happen, it's necessary for us all to step up the pace and be engaged.